Hey you, yes you, I want you to stop and ask yourself one thing. What do people think of you when you walk into a room? Do they admire you? Do they trust you? Or do they just look away? We've all heard the word respect, but are you truly earning it? Trust me when I say this. True respect isn't handed to you on a silver platter. You have to earn it. And it begins with breaking the toxic habits you may not even know you're holding on to. If you're ready to step up and take control of your life, your career, and your relationships, then it's time to break free from those chains. Are you ready? Let's talk about the 7 toxic habits that are stealing your respect. And most importantly, how you can break them. These are the habits holding you back, making you less powerful than you deserve to be. But today, we're changing that. Right here, right now. Let's talk about the habit of self-doubt for a moment, because it is quite honestly one of the most toxic habits you could ever carry. Think about this. How many times have you been in a situation where you felt unsure of yourself? You have an idea, you have the dream. You know deep down that you're capable of achieving something extraordinary, but then comes that voice, that little voice that says, you can't do it. Who do you think you are? Someone else is better. Maybe you should just stay where you are. It's like a constant nagging, isn't it? But here's the truth. Self-doubt is a dream killer. It's the silent thief that steals your potential before you even have the chance to show the world who you truly are. How many times have we seen a woman with an incredible idea or a man with the most amazing potential, but they get held back simply because they doubt themselves? We've all been there. We've all questioned ourselves. But here's the problem. You will never know how powerful you are if you keep allowing self-doubt to dictate your actions. I want you to understand something. That little voice in your head, the one that tells you you're not good enough, is just fear in disguise. And fear? Fear is the biggest liar of them all. Fear will tell you that you're not ready, that you're not worthy, that you're going to fail. But let me ask you something. What if, just for a second, you decided to ignore that voice? What if instead of listening to fear, you chose to take a step forward even when you felt uncertain? What if you chose to trust your own instincts and bet on yourself? I'm not asking you to take a huge leap tomorrow. I'm asking you to start with a single step. Just one decision that you are enough. Let me tell you, self-doubt holds us back in ways we can't even imagine. It makes us question everything, our dreams, our worth, our capabilities. But let me tell you, the very moment you stop doubting yourself is the moment you start unlocking your power. Let me give you an example from everyday life. Have you ever been in a meeting where you knew the answer or you had the solution to the problem at hand, but you stayed quiet? Not because you didn't know the answer, but because you were afraid of speaking up? I've seen it happen to so many incredible women. Their eyes light up with a great idea, but then that voice takes over. What if they laugh at me? What if I'm wrong? What if they think I'm not smart enough? And guess what happens? That idea stays locked in their mind and the opportunity slips away. But here's the catch. The world doesn't respect you for staying quiet. The world respects you for stepping up, for speaking your truth, for taking action, even when the outcome is uncertain. And you know what else? You are never going to be prepared for everything. You will always have doubts. There will always be challenges. But you know who wins? The person who moves despite the doubts, who chooses to trust their instincts, even when everything seems unclear. Imagine if every successful woman, every powerful leader, every person who has made it to the top had listened to their doubts. What would have happened? They would still be stuck in the same place, wondering what if? But they didn't. They moved forward even when they felt terrified. In fact, let's talk about one of the most powerful examples I know. Oprah Winfrey. Do you know how many people doubted her? How many people told her she wasn't good enough? She started in a small town with nothing but a dream and the courage to push through self-doubt. She had every reason to question herself, to believe that she wasn't good enough for the grand stages of the world. But she didn't let fear hold her back. She kept moving forward, even when every single step was met with resistance. And look where she is now. Oprah is a living testament that your doubts mean absolutely nothing if you have the courage to stand tall, speak your truth, and act on your dreams. So ask yourself, how many times have you let self-doubt stop you? Think about those moments, the opportunities you missed, the chances you didn't take simply because you didn't believe you were capable of pulling it off. Self-doubt steals your dreams, it steals your potential, and it feeds on your fear. But guess what? It's time to break that cycle. It's time to stop allowing self-doubt to define you. The world doesn't need you to be perfect. The world just needs you to be authentically you. Stop hiding your brilliance behind that mask of insecurity. The moment you choose to believe in yourself, your world changes. You become unstoppable. Let's talk about the habit of being a people pleaser. This is something we've all experienced at some point in our lives. You know, that constant need to make everyone happy, to say yes to every request, to go above and beyond for others, even at the cost of your own well-being. It's something that feels so natural, doesn't it? We're taught to be kind, to help others, to be accommodating, and to keep the peace. But here's the truth. Being a people pleaser is one of the most toxic habits that will drain your energy, steal your time, and rob you of your self-respect. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine you're at work, and you're constantly taking on more tasks, even though your plate is already full. Your boss asks for a favor, your colleague needs help, and another person wants you to pitch in. Without hesitation, you say yes to everything. You're always the one who says, sure, I'll do that. Why? Because you want to be seen as helpful, capable, and dependable. You want others to like you, to see you as someone who's always there no matter what. But here's what's happening beneath the surface. While you're saying yes to everyone, you're actually saying no to yourself. You're saying no to your own needs, your own dreams, your own goals. You're saying no to the time you need to recharge, to focus on what's important to you, to be your best self. And guess what happens when you continue down this path? You end up burnout, frustrated, and resentful. And the worst part is, no one even notices. The people you're trying to please are going on with their lives while you're left feeling invisible, exhausted, and unappreciated. Let me tell you something. Being a people pleaser is not a virtue. It's a trap. It's a pattern that makes you think that your worth is tied to how much you do for others. But let me ask you this. When was the last time you asked yourself, what do I need? When was the last time you said no without feeling guilty? When was the last time you prioritized your own dreams, your own time, your own self-worth over someone else's expectations? You see, there's this lie that being a people pleaser will make you loved, admired, and accepted. But what it really does is create a life of sacrifice, where you're always giving and never receiving. You're not giving from a place of abundance. You're giving from a place of emptiness. You're giving because you think you have to, not because you genuinely want to. You're giving because you're afraid of conflict, of disappointing others, of being rejected. And the irony is, the more you try to please everyone, the less they actually respect you. Think about your relationships, whether it's with your family, your friends, or your significant other. How many times have you agreed to something that you didn't want to do, just to avoid confrontation? Maybe you didn't speak up when you should have. Maybe you didn't express how you truly felt because you were afraid it might upset the other person. But let me tell you this. When you don't speak your truth, you lose your voice. And when you lose your voice, you lose your power. Look at people like Oprah Winfrey, who became one of the most powerful women in the world. Do you think she got there by trying to please everyone around her? Absolutely not. Oprah made decisions based on her own values, her own passions, her own sense of purpose. She wasn't afraid to say no. She wasn't afraid to disappoint people if it meant staying true to herself. And guess what? She earned respect and admiration because of it. Being a people pleaser is exhausting. It's emotionally draining. It's like constantly running on empty, giving and giving without ever taking a moment to recharge. And the more you do this, the more you lose yourself in the process. You become someone who's always available for everyone else, but never available for your own growth, your own happiness, your own peace. Now, let me give you a personal example. I remember a time in my own life when I was stuck in this cycle. I would say yes to everything, helping friends with their problems, taking on extra work, always trying to be the person everyone could rely on. But deep down, I felt I was losing myself. I was constantly running around trying to make everyone happy, but in the process, I was neglecting my own needs, my own passions, and my own well-being. And what did I get in return? People were grateful for a moment, but I didn't gain their respect. In fact, I was treated as if I were always available, because I always said yes. And that's when it hit me. People will never respect you more for saying yes all the time. They will respect you more for having boundaries, for knowing when to say no, for standing up for yourself. It's the women who have the courage to put themselves first who get the respect they deserve. Because when you stop people pleasing, you stop allowing others to take advantage of your kindness. You show them that you are worthy of respect just as you are. Not because of what you do for them, but because of who you are. So stop saying yes to everything. Start saying no when you need to. And don't feel guilty about it. You are not obligated to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. You are allowed to take care of yourself first. The more you honor your own boundaries, the more others will respect you. Let's talk about holding grudges, a habit that many of us fall into without realizing the damage it causes. We've all been hurt at some point, whether it was by a friend, a partner, a colleague, or even a family member. People disappoint us, betray our trust, or fail to meet our expectations, and we can't help but feel the sting. But here's the thing, holding on to those feelings of anger and resentment only hurts you more than it hurts them. Think about this for a moment. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack everywhere you go, filled with stones that represent the grudges you're holding. Every time someone hurts you, you throw a new stone in that backpack, and with each stone, the weight gets heavier and heavier. At first, the weight seems manageable, but eventually it becomes so overwhelming that it starts to affect your health, your happiness, and your ability to move forward in life. That's what holding a grudge does. It drags you down, slows you down, and weighs you down. Let me tell you a personal story. There was a time in my life when I held onto a grudge for years. Someone very close to me betrayed my trust in a way that cut me to the core. I felt hurt, angry, and heartbroken. For years, I let that anger fester inside me. Every time I thought about that person, I would feel the tightness in my chest, the bitterness in my stomach. I convinced myself that I had every right to be angry, that I was justified in my feelings. But what I didn't realize at the time was that while I was holding on to that grudge, I wasn't hurting the person who had wronged me. I was only hurting myself. You see, holding a grudge is like giving someone the power to control your happiness. You're giving them a space in your mind, your heart, and your life that they don't deserve. Every time you replay that hurt in your head, you're giving them permission to keep affecting you. And the more you hold on to that anger, the more you allow it to control your thoughts, your actions, and your energy. You can't move forward when you're constantly looking backward. Think about the countless stories of successful people who have had every reason to hold grudges, but they chose to let go. Take Nelson Mandela, for example. He spent 27 years in prison, unjustly imprisoned, for standing up for what he believed in. He had every reason to hold a grudge against the people who imprisoned him, who treated him with such cruelty. But instead of allowing hatred and bitterness to consume him, he chose to forgive. He understood that holding a grudge would only keep him trapped in the past, and he didn't want to live there. He wanted to be free, and in that freedom, he became one of the most respected leaders in history. Let's bring it to a more personal level. Have you ever noticed how holding onto a grudge affects your relationships? Maybe a friend hurt you years ago, and every time you see them, you still feel that sting of betrayal. You're still upset about something they did or said, and it colors every interaction you have with them. What happens next? That bitterness becomes a barrier. It keeps you from truly connecting with people. It keeps you from experiencing the joy and peace of being in the present moment, because you're still anchored in the past. You're so focused on what was done to you that you forget about the potential for what could be. And here's the kicker. The person who hurt you has already moved on. They're not sitting around thinking about how they hurt you. They're not losing sleep over it. But you're the one carrying that burden. You're the one letting that negative energy dictate your life, your choices, and your future. Forgiveness doesn't mean you're excusing their actions or saying that what they did was okay. Forgiveness means you're choosing to free yourself from the chains of resentment. You're deciding that your peace, your happiness, and your future are more important than holding on to the past. Think about the toll that holding grudges takes on your emotional and physical well-being. Research has shown that unforgiveness can lead to anxiety, depression, and even physical illnesses like high blood pressure and heart disease. When you carry that anger and resentment, it's like you're drinking poison and hoping the other person dies from it. It's your health, your joy, and your peace that are at risk. Let it go, not for them, but for you. Look, I understand. It's not always easy. Some people have done things that feel unforgivable. But think about what happens when you choose forgiveness. When you choose to let go of that grudge. You're reclaiming your power. You're taking back control over your life. You're saying, I am not defined by what was done to me. I am defined by how I choose to rise above it. You have the power to take back your peace, your energy, and your future. So the next time you feel the weight of a grudge creeping up on you, ask yourself, do I want to continue carrying this burden or do I want to be free? Because holding a grudge is like holding on to the past. And the only way to truly move forward is to let it go. Let's talk about seeking external validation, something we all fall into at different points in our lives. It's that need for others to approve of us, to give us a pat on the back, to acknowledge our worth. We post a picture on social media and we wait for the likes to pour in, the comments to flood in, the hearts to fill up. We dress a certain way, say certain things, or act in a certain manner. All because we want to be seen, admired, and validated by others. But here's the truth. The moment you rely on others for your validation is the moment you lose yourself. Think about this. How many times have you done something just to get the approval of others? Maybe you wore that outfit because you wanted to be noticed. Maybe you worked harder than necessary to gain your boss's praise. Or maybe you even said something just to fit in with a crowd. The need for external validation can become so ingrained in us that it becomes a way of life. We constantly seek confirmation that we are good enough, that we are worthy, that we are loved. But here's the catch. External validation is like a drug. It gives you a quick high, but the effects are temporary. You'll always need more. Let's take a moment to reflect on something deeper. We all know the feeling of looking in the mirror and not liking what we see, whether it's our appearance, our career, or our life choices. We start looking for approval in the wrong places, through likes, followers, or other people's opinions. But that approval, those words, they're fleeting. It's like building your house on sand. It might feel sturdy for a while, but when the storm comes, it's going to crumble. You can't build your worth on someone else's opinion. Your worth is already inside you, waiting to be discovered. Take a moment and think about people who live for others' approval. They're always chasing after the next compliment, the next validation. We've all seen it. The person who thrives on praise from their boss, but doesn't feel complete unless they hear it from their colleagues as well. Or the one who needs constant confirmation on social media, counting likes like they count their worth. The problem with living for approval is that you never feel truly fulfilled. It's an exhausting cycle that leaves you chasing after something that isn't real. You become a slave to the opinions of others. Let me give you a real-life example. Think of someone who works hard, day in and day out, to get that promotion. They burn the midnight oil, sacrifice their time, and bend over backward to please their boss. They finally get the recognition, the title, and the applause. But what happens next? They start looking for the next promotion, the next praise, the next form of validation. Why? Because that first approval didn't fulfill them. It's like eating junk food. You're hungry again in an hour. External validation can never truly satisfy you because it's based on something outside yourself. Let's turn the lens inward now. How many times have you relied on others for your sense of self-worth? We all do it at some point. We look at others to measure our success, compare ourselves to their achievements, and wait for them to tell us that we're enough. But let me ask you this. Why is someone else's opinion of you more important than your own? Why let their words dictate your sense of value, your worth, your identity? The answer is simple. It's easier. It's easier to have someone else tell you what you're worth than to do the hard work of building that confidence and self-love from within. But let me tell you something important. True power comes from within. It comes when you stop looking for validation outside of yourself and start believing in your own worth, regardless of what anyone else thinks. When you're no longer dependent on external applause, that's when you find freedom. That's when you find the courage to walk your own path, to make decisions based on your values and not on what others expect from you. Think about some of the most successful and respected individuals. Take Maya Angelou, for example. She wasn't waiting for the world to validate her talent. She wasn't looking for the approval of the critics. She was writing and speaking from her heart, trusting that her truth would resonate with those who needed to hear it. She didn't rely on the applause of others to fuel her creativity. She created because it was in her soul to do so. That's the essence of self-worth. It's knowing that you're valuable, not because someone else said so, but because you believe it yourself. Here's a personal truth I want to share. There was a time in my life when I was obsessed with what others thought of me. I lived for the validation of people around me, my family, my friends, my colleagues. I constantly sought their approval because I believed that if they approved of me, then I was doing things right. But it wasn't until I realized that their approval was only temporary that I began to shift. I realized that my worth was not defined by their opinion. And once I accepted that, I felt more freedom than I ever had before. I stopped caring so much about pleasing others and started focusing on what made me happy, what felt right to me. And here's the secret I want you to know. When you stop seeking validation from the outside world, you start creating a life that is aligned with your authentic self. You become the source of your own approval. You stop measuring your worth based on someone else's standards, and you start defining it based on your own. That's when you step into your power. That's when you become unstoppable. Lack of accountability is one of the most dangerous habits you can fall into. It's a habit that quietly erodes your potential, your relationships, and your success. When you're not accountable for your actions, your choices, or your words, you open the door to excuses, procrastination, and missed opportunities. You become a spectator in your own life, watching events unfold around you, rather than taking charge of the story you are meant to write. Think about the last time you failed at something or fell short of your goals. What was your immediate reaction? Did you look for someone or something else to blame? Maybe the circumstances weren't right. Maybe someone else didn't do their part. Maybe it was just bad luck. It's easy to point fingers at others or at life itself when things don't go our way. But let's face it, the moment you start blaming the world around you for your mistakes is the moment you lose your power. Accountability is about owning your decisions, no matter how difficult that might feel. Take a moment to think about a time when you took full responsibility for something. Maybe it was a mistake you made at work or a personal failure. Maybe you let someone down and instead of deflecting or finding excuses, you stepped up, admitted your fault, and made it right. That moment when you took full responsibility was probably one of the most empowering experiences of your life. You felt your shoulders lighten. You felt a sense of control. Because accountability isn't just about taking the blame. It's about owning your power to change, to improve, and to shape your future. But when we fail to be accountable, we give away that power. We let our failures define us instead of using them as stepping stones towards success. It's like standing in front of a mirror and refusing to see the reflection of who you truly are. Instead of acknowledging your mistakes, you deny them, and in doing so, you deny your ability to learn and grow. Let's look at a common scenario. You have a goal to get healthier. You tell yourself that you're going to exercise more, eat better, and make changes. But week after week, you find yourself slipping back into old habits, skipping workouts, eating junk food, staying up late. And what do? You blame everything from your busy schedule to your stressful life. But the truth is, your lack of progress has nothing to do with external factors. It's about your failure to take responsibility for your own actions. If you want to make lasting changes, you have to look in the mirror and hold yourself accountable. It's not enough to simply hope things will get better or wish for a different outcome. You have to take action. Every single day, you have to admit to yourself when you're falling short. And you have to own the fact that it's up to you to get back on track. This is true not just for personal goals, but also in your professional life. How many times have you seen colleagues or even friends point fingers when something goes wrong at work, when a project fails or a deadline is missed? The first instinct is often to look for a scapegoat. But the truth is everyone has a part to play in the outcome. And if you're not holding yourself accountable, you're never going to grow and you're never going to advance. Accountability doesn't just mean acknowledging when things go wrong. It means taking responsibility when things go right too. When you succeed, it's because you did the work. It's because you made the right choices. And you should own that success just as much as you would own your failures. Let me tell you a story. A close friend of mine was struggling with a project at work. She was constantly blaming her team for the delays, the miscommunication, and the lack of progress. One day, she and I were having coffee, and I asked her a simple question. What part of the problem is in your hands? What could you have done differently? She paused, and for the first time, she saw the truth. While there were external challenges, she hadn't been fully accountable for her own role in the delays. Once she accepted that, she took responsibility for improving her communication, setting clearer expectations, and being more proactive. Within weeks, the project started moving forward. It wasn't magic. It was accountability. The key to unlocking your full potential is to own your decisions. Stop blaming your circumstances, your past, or the people around you for your failures. Every time you refuse to take responsibility, you take one step further away from the person you are meant to become. Accountability is the key to self-empowerment. It's what turns a setback into a comeback, a failure into a lesson, and a dream into a reality. So the next time something goes wrong in your life, ask yourself, what could I have done differently? And when you succeed, ask yourself, how can I build on this? Taking ownership of your actions, your choices, and your life is the only way to truly move forward and claim the future you deserve. It's time to stop waiting for someone to hand you success and start earning it with your own hard work, responsibility, and accountability. The fear of saying no is one of the most paralyzing habits many of us hold on to, and it affects our lives in ways we may not even realize. How often have you said yes to something you didn't want to do just because you were afraid of disappointing someone? How many times have you found yourself in situations, events, or commitments that drain your energy, make you feel trapped, or even resentful, simply because you couldn't bring yourself to say no? The truth is, saying no is one of the most powerful tools you have to take control of your life. Let me tell you something that may hit hard. When you say yes to everything, you're actually saying no to yourself. Every time you agree to do something out of guilt, fear, or the need to please others, you're sacrificing your own needs, your time, and your peace. That's right, you're choosing someone else's comfort over your own well-being. It's like trying to fill a glass from an empty jug. You cannot give from an empty cup. If you constantly pour your energy into others without protecting your own boundaries, eventually you'll have nothing left to give. Think about this. Have you ever said yes to something you really didn't want to do, only to regret it later? Maybe you agreed to attend an event you didn't feel like going to, or perhaps you took on a task at work even though you were already overwhelmed. The moment the commitment was made, a part of you knew it wasn't the right choice, but the fear of disappointing someone or looking rude prevented you from speaking your truth. In those moments, you chose the comfort of others over your own peace. But what if, in those moments, you had been brave enough to say no? What if you had put your own needs first without feeling guilty about it? I know it's not easy. Saying no feels like breaking some invisible rule. We've all been taught to be polite, to be accommodating, to be the person everyone can count on. But the reality is, if you keep saying yes out of obligation, you're not actually helping anyone. You're setting yourself up for burnout, resentment, and frustration. People will respect you more when you show them that your time, energy, and peace are valuable. When you set clear boundaries, you teach others how to treat you, and more importantly, you teach yourself how to respect your own limits. Let me give you a simple but powerful example. A friend of mine was always the first to offer help when someone needed it, even if she was already juggling 10 other things. Whether it was helping a colleague with their work, running errands for her family, or volunteering for extra projects, she was always the one who said yes. But over time, this took a toll on her. She started feeling overwhelmed, exhausted, and frustrated. One day, she snapped. She had taken on so much that she couldn't keep up, and the stress started affecting her health and relationships. She had ignored her own needs for so long that she had nothing left to give. That's when she realized that saying no wasn't selfish. It was an act of self-preservation. It wasn't easy for her to start saying no. At first, she felt guilty. She worried about what others would think, whether they would be angry or disappointed. But with time, she learned that saying no didn't mean she was being rude or unkind. It meant that she was respecting herself and her own boundaries. Saying no gave her the space she needed to focus on what was truly important to her: her well-being, her family, and her passions. There's a power in those two little letters, and it's time we start using them more often. Saying no is not about rejecting people or opportunities. It's about choosing what aligns with your values, what contributes to your growth, and what nourishes your soul. Saying no is a sign of strength, not weakness. It's about recognizing that you're worthy of your own time, your own peace, and your own happiness. Think about the people you respect the most. I'll bet they are the ones who have strong boundaries and don't hesitate to say no when necessary. They know their worth and they don't apologize for it. They understand that they are in control of their own time and energy. They're not afraid to disappoint others because they know that being true to themselves is far more important than seeking approval from others. Saying no doesn't mean you don't care. It simply means that you care more about being authentic, about being present, and about being the best version of yourself.